Oh my God, it is December already. Somehow 2024 is almost over. And considering a lot of the events of this year, good riddance, but I can't believe the year's almost over. But it's December, and that means it's time to wrap up November. So let's have a talk about the stuff I read in November. As always, let me know in the comments below what you read in November, and if you've read any of the books I'm about to talk about. I'm really interested in having discussions about any and all of these. I'm going to do some fairly short reviews in this video. Every book I read this month is going to get either its own dedicated video or a group video with some other books. Some of them are already up, in which case there will be links in the corner. The rest of them will be coming up in the next couple of weeks. So if I talk about a book in this video and you want to hear my full thoughts, either check out the video or make sure you're subscribed, hit that bell notification icon so you know when the review goes up. But jumping right into the first one was Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. Annihilation does have its own review. It is linked in the corner, per chow. But in short, I really struggled with the start of this book. It's written very interestingly. It follows a group of women who are part of a scientific exploration into an area known as Area X. Area X is this strange area that's appeared in the wilderness that has weird phenomenon that has weird happenings and has strange occurrences. The people that go in either don't come out or they come out changed. And it's told through the journal of one of these women, and it's written very strangely. The dialogue doesn't sound anything at all like real dialogue. The actions are described kind of robotically at times. It all makes sense with the narrative of the story, but at the start it was very, very jarring. It was about halfway through when I realized that this wasn't going to be a traditional narrative with like a, act 1, 2, and 3 and nice satisfying questions and answers, and that it was more about the atmosphere and the experience. And so I put on some music, and then I really, really liked it. I still have issues with stuff like the dialogue. I think the ending is one of the worst endings I've read in a very, very, very long time. But overall, I think it's definitely worth a read. I am going to read the sequels, probably in the new year, but Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer gets 4 stars. Next up, I read Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. This space opera following a artificial intelligence that is in the body of a human soldier that once controlled an entire spaceship and legions of these soldiers called ancillaries. They are now locked to one of these ancillaries, and it's a story of revenge, it's a story of identity, it's a story of cultures, it's an exploration of cultures, and it's an exploration of identity, and it was fantastic. I really, really liked it. It does have one of my pet peeves, which is a book that is clearly written as book 1 of, for example, 3, but that's purely a me problem. I don't hold that against the book. The book is written fantastically. There's 2 narratives at play, one in the past where we follow our main character when they are the spaceship and this legion of ancillaries, as well as one in the present when they are just this one lone ancillary seeking answers, seeking vengeance. And it's really, really well done. The prose is particularly good in the past timeline when they've got this sort of distributed intelligence across a group of soldiers and the spaceship itself, and we see events unfold in real time from multiple perspectives, and it's really cool and it's really well written. If I had any complaints, the prose and the storytelling and the narrative weaving that happens in that past timeline just kind of far surpasses what's shown in the present timeline. But the present timeline is still engaging and fun in this revenge story. Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie gets 5 stars. It's fantastic. I really do recommend you check it out if you haven't. Speaking of, if you do want to check out any of these books, I do have Amazon affiliate links in the description below. It doesn't cost you a cent extra, but it does make Jeff Bezos give some of his dirty money to me. And then after that, I finally got a hold of a copy. I had to wait for the hardbacks to come out. I've been searching for a paperback copy of this for, it seems like years, but I just could never find one that was reasonably priced. But the hardbacks are out now, at least for the first 3, so I picked up the first one, and that is Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. This is my first foray into lit RPG, this style of telling a story as though it's a video game, like it's got video game elements in it. Something that's very common now in anime, and I think is like this big movement in especially indie fantasy right now. Dungeon Crawler Carl is one of those books that makes me understand why bookstores have sci-fi and fantasy in one section, even though I often wish they were separate, because this is very clearly a sci-fi story. There's aliens and technology and weird stuff going on, but also it's kind of a fantasy story because there's goblins and orcs and swords and magic and stuff. So I completely understand why I probably wouldn't be able to split the two. But it's also fantastic. It's a prime example of just somehow managing to both jump right into the action with no exposition, no lollygagging, no wasted moments, and yet also having this rich, detailed backstory, this rich history, this culture that's shown. On top of that, just moment-to-moment action is just fantastic. The pacing is brilliant. It is one of the best books I've read this year. I've already picked up book 2. I'm already about to start reading book 2. Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman is an easy 5 stars for me. It'll have a review coming up soon. I just can't believe how good this was. Next, suggested to me by a lot of people on my Diaspora review by Greg Egan, Pachow, that if I was looking for more hard sci-fi, I should look towards Robert L. Forward's Dragon Egg. And this book was a super interesting one. It doesn't really have too much of a through narrative in it. It is more of a sort of almost a thought experiment in this book. It is detailing the existence of aliens that live on a neutron star. And the neutron star is so gravity dense it's developed this crust around the outside, and these aliens are like a millimeter high, millimeters wide, and it details their life. And they live at such intense gravity that like an hour for us is like 20, 30, 40, 50 years for them. And so generations of them go by in the time it takes you to have a nap or something. And this is the story of mankind making first contact with this group at such a time was there basically this sort of tribal nomadic society, and then watching them as they interact with mankind, discover each other, and then as they evolve and advance at such a rapid pace subjectively to mankind, as we see them go through their entire technological sort of lifespan. And there are characters here, there are sort of storylines, but more than anything, I think it's just kind of a thought experiment to view this unique culture and this unique time difference in experiences, and it is just fantastic. It doesn't have the narrative. Normally a book like this I would give it a 3 stars, but the science here is just so interesting. The revelations it makes are just so interesting that it has to be a 4-star read. I will have a full review coming up for this one. Keep an eye out. And finally on audiobook, I checked out a Warhammer 40k novel again. I put up this poll asking you which book I should read, and then I read the lowest voted one, so sue me. I read Belisarius Cawl, The Great Work by Guy Haley. Guy Haley is one of the writers in the Black Library I really, really enjoy. Belisarius Cawl is a character I've known of, but never known anything really about. And I have to say, he was not at all what I was expecting in this book. Belisarius Cawl in this book is charismatic, complicated. This is a weird word to use to describe this character if you don't know 40k, but surprisingly human. I was expecting the sort of stereotypical tech priest we see in a lot of the other works in Black Library, where they would barely even talk with vocal cords or in High Gothic to anyone else, and they talk in like binary cant and in machine language, and they are so divorced from humanity that they don't want to talk to anyone else, they just care about their tech. That's the picture of Belisarius Cawl I had in my head, but this book shows me that that was so far from the truth. He's one of the most charismatic and open individuals I've seen in any of these books, and that's partially due to the personality he enloads for this story, but that's another thing that's really interesting. And this has some of my favourite stuff to do with the Tyranids, to do with the Necrons, to do with Genestealer cults. It has a really, really interesting view on some firstborn Space Marines and how they're interacting with their new Primaris brethren. And overall, it was really good. It was better than I thought it was going to be. I read this one in preparation to then move on to Genefather after I've read the Fabius Bile trilogy, which might be what I read next for Warhammer. Don't hold me to it, though. Belisarius Cawl, The Great Work by Guy Haley gets 4 stars from me. So there you go, I read 5 books in November, but let's quickly check in on how my yearly challenges are going. First off, my Goodreads challenge. I challenge myself every year to read 52 books a year, and I'm at 74, so I've smashed that one. I might hit 80, but I kind of doubt it with what's coming up in December. After that challenge that I've smashed are 2 that I'm actually really worried about at this point. First off is my fantasy reading challenge playlist in the corner, Pachow. This is my challenge to read and review 10 fantasy books this year, because I was always a sci-fi horror reader and never a fantasy reader. So I've forced myself to read fantasy to widen my horizons, as it were. And I'm currently at 8 out of 10 books for this challenge. I'm currently reading the 9th. I'm hoping to finish it in the next couple of days. But then the 10th book, it's a doozy. It's really big, and I've got to read it all in a month, on top of other stuff I want to read. I'm really worried about this one. And then finally, my bingo board, bring up my board. This is where we stand right now. We're doing okay. A couple of the books I read in November are gonna land on here as well, so that's good. But I need some help. There are a couple squares here that I'm struggling with. First off is romantasy. I'm not a romance reader. I did pick up Ocean's Echo by Everina Maxwell. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards for my romantasy reads so far. But if anyone has anything that's kind of preferably sci-fi, preferably a bit action-orientated, maybe a little bit light on the romance, but still considered romantasy, something to ease me into the genre, then that would be fantastic. Up after that, Dark Academia. I'm probably going to read Babel by R.F. Kuang. I've mispronounced that, I'm really sorry. But if anyone has anything else that would land in that category, again, if there's anything sci-fi, that'd be fantastic. And then finally, the one I've been having trouble with all year, and I do have to the end of March next year to finish this, so I don't have to do all these in December, but the one I've been worried about all year is the read-along books, the book club read-along books. Our Fantasy has read-alongs every month, 3 to 4 to 5 books, and they do discussions about them, and I've been eyeing them every month, and nothing's really jumped out at me as something I want to read. Until this month, where one of the book clubs is reading Blackfish City by Sam J. Miller. And I thought, this sounds great. It's this post-climate change collapse story about a city, I believe in the Arctic or the Antarctic, and this political corruption and this political upheaval and activism that takes place here is my understanding. That's all I know about it so far. It sounds right up my alley. It sounds really interesting. I'm really excited to read it. I was about to buy it. But then the thing is, this cover is the one that's easily available in Australia. And it's fine. There's nothing wrong with this cover. I thought it was pretty cool. Until I saw this one. This cover's also available, and this cover is one of the best covers I've ever seen. I can't bring myself to buy this book knowing that this cover exists. Unfortunately, this cover doesn't seem to have ever made it to Australian shores, so I'm not sure it's going to show up in time for me to read it in December. But either way, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it at my own pace when it shows up, and I'm going to discuss it if I can on the subreddit, and I'm going to count it as that square. Other books I'm going to read in December. I am currently reading The First Law, Book 1, The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. I have about 100 pages left, and it is outstanding. The other book I'm planning on reading is, I was really hoping to read Dungeon Crawler Carl Book 2. I do have that one, but there was a big, scary tome looming over the top of my head, and if I don't read it, Digger Dan, or my friend over at Digger Dan Reads, pachow, is going to yell at me and bully me. But it's really big. It's about 8 million pages. Yep, it's 8 million pages. Also, I just noticed there's no gaps between the chapters. So like, like normally like this would be blank and then chapter 15 is on a new page. So this is just 8 million pages of solid text. But yeah, this is probably going to be my December and maybe my January, February, March, and April. Who knows? There you have it. That's my November. That's what I'm planning for February. That's where my challenges are right now. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone that's still watching. I want to say thank you so much to everyone that's subscribed. When I started this channel, I never envisioned it ever getting this big. I never envisioned so many people watching, so many people commenting and discussing books, and I just want to say thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great December. If I don't see you until then, I hope you have fantastic holidays. I hope you have a great Christmas and New Year's. I hope you enjoy whatever holiday it is you celebrate, and I hope everyone just stays safe. And remember to keep reading.